Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, February 9th, and as you can tell, we're out of the studio. We're out on the road. We're doing drag racing things, living that drag racing life here at the beautiful Gainesville Raceway Park in Gainesville, Florida for day three of Sick Week 2002. Huge shout out to Tom Bailey, Luke Newhoff, everybody involved with Sick Week for having us down here. We're having a whale of a time. It is a whole new world out here in the drag and drive scene, but it's been an absolute blast. We've been warmly welcomed by everybody that we've encountered. It's an exciting time here in the sport of drag racing, right? The NHRA season is right around the corner. A big majority of our sports stars and cars have already rolled into Wild Horse Raceway Park out in Phoenix, Arizona for the official NHRA test session. Very exciting. Got all sorts of storylines to talk about from the forthcoming NHRA season, but we're going to focus a whole bunch of today's show on Sick Week 2022, talk about many of the cars, people, places that we've experienced the last few days. We are, like I said, day 3 of what I believe will be a full week of excitement out here on the road. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my partners in crime here, the one and only Mike Carpenter, Murder Tundra. What's going on, guys?
What's up, man?
What's up?
Hey, and it's 2022, by the way. It was
fun having you here, and then you left us high and dry on the side of the road.
Did you hear me, though? It's 2022. 2002 again. You're stuck in the past, man. You gotta look. You gotta live more in the present.
It's unbelievable. I'm curious, guys. What was your take? None of us have really been a big part of the drag and drive scene. We've always been paying attention. Of course, we know who Larry Larson is. Of course, we know who Jeff Lutz is. Of course, we know who Steve Morris is, who Tom Bailey is. But we haven't dived in and gone on the tour like so many of these folks have in the past. And I got to tell you, I don't mean to speak for the whole group. I certainly want to hear what you guys have to say. But so far, so good. This is a scene, a type of racing that I am fully on board with.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, man. Like you said, we've seen it from afar, but to be sort of participating in it, at least for the drive between tracks, it's a pretty cool deal. It's got a different energy. It's got a different environment to it. It's always cool to go see something different. And I actually love the part between the rounds, between the racing, as much as the actual racing. And you guys actually caught a ton of that yesterday. You kind of had a rain out, a little bit of an off day, but as we were talking about, I don't think it was a bad thing.
To be honest, I don't know that. I think
it could be a thing.
I think it could be part of the deal. To be honest, as cool as it would have been to roll into Orlando Speed World and do the dance and see cars going down the track yesterday, I have to admit that a day lost to rain, interesting, because in that situation at virtually any other drag racing event, right, it's a bummer. Oh, damn it. What a deal. This is the worst. Everybody's kind of crying in their beer that we've lost the day to rain out. But in this type of scene, of course, people wanted to race. Obviously, everybody wants to make a pass down the track, but there was still, the adventure was still right in front of us. We still had to get from Orlando, Florida to Gainesville, Florida. We still had a certain route we had to follow, and that it was kind of neat to think that, man, it's raining, but we're still driving 7-second, 6-second, 200 plus mile an hour race cars down the highway, driving along yesterday along with the Atlantic Ocean.
They were down to the beach. Everybody's driving their car down the beach. You know, I mean, like, that's crazy, right?
The coolest thing that I think that I have experienced. I get it. I understand. Yeah. I don't know that they meant for Sick Week to be. I don't really think it was the play on words. Wasn't about developing a sickness. It was about taking a week off work, right, and going and chasing your racing dreams. But
I thought it was like, dude, that's sick, bro. I thought that's what I thought it was.
Play on words. No, it's like
This is a sick. There's a sick week.
You're calling in. You're calling in.
Because I talked to a multitude of racers last night. We rolled into.
I can't really make it to work, boss. I'm sorry. No. I'm just not feeling the best.
No, it's a sickness. This type of racing, because I can imagine how once you've done this, pretty much any other style of racing would feel fairly pedestrian. You know what I mean? Like the thought of rolling to a track, with a big trailer full of tools and spare parts and a crew of a dozen people to help you with whatever issue you may encounter, versus being out on the road with kind of nothing but the tools in your backpack and the handful of parts that you could carry and your buddy, and you're just left to your own devices. It's a really unique thing. We had a conversation yesterday afternoon with Dennis Taylor, Alex Taylor's father, a guy who's been a part of the drag and drive scene perhaps since its onset, has won Hot Rod Drag Week, has been at the forefront of this movement for a long time. And he looked me square in the face and he said, man, I have a ton of respect for every type of drag racing, NHRA, PDRA, all these different types of racing. But he goes, I think personally, I would be bored out of my mind. You know, like just wait until Q1 at 2:15 and then waiting for Q2 at 4:30. That's a really interesting thing, right? I mean, and I get it. I mean, I've thought about how many times you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs because the car's ready. Car's ready to go. You've done all the work at the shop to be prepared for this moment. I can see how it would be a little bit boring or a little bit lackluster to do that once you've done this, once you've dived into Sick Week, Drag Week, Rocky Mountain Race Week, all these things.
And these guys work, man. There's not a dull moment where they're sitting around. They are crisscrossing back and forth, finding parts, finding tools, finding welders, helping each other, like you said. And if you think about the toll that it takes, I saw the video yesterday of Alex and her dad driving through the rain. And you know how it is driving in the rain in your street car. I mean, like at night or, on a cloudy day and it's raining, it'll take its toll on you. You have to be, mentally focused at all times. And then you're behind, fatiguing. And you're behind a 2,000 horsepower, power plant. You've got a headset on just so you can communicate to your dad who's a foot from you, and how much wear and tear that puts on you. It's almost like the wear and tear of like a NASCAR race. Those guys, we always debate, are they athletes or not? And to be able to wheel a car like that through a 500-mile race is kind of similar to having to wheel this car from Bradenton to Orlando to Gainesville, then go race it, then tear it down, work on it. All the changes that go into the cars between, converting them to street mode to race mode. It is a ton of work.
If you think about it like this, and this is, and I want to remind everybody watching, again, thank you guys for joining us each and every Wednesday afternoon for the Wes Buck Show on the Drag Illustrated Facebook and YouTube page, YouTube channel, We surely appreciate it. Make sure you check in the comments, click like, click subscribe, click share, help us spread the gospel of drag racing. I got to tell you guys, have you ever pulled up to an intersection and seen oncoming traffic and you have this moment of anticipation, do I have enough time to make it? I'm trying to get to the median, that center section of the road. And can you imagine having that experience? I told Nate, which is here with me right now, what's going on, editor-in-chief, Drag Illustrated Magazine. You should scoot in here, buddy. We'll do the old classic scoot. JT, change our names to Wes and Nate again. I changed it a minute ago, and we'll change it back. But I told Nate, you roll up to some of those stoplights, you could be in a minivan, and you have a little bit of anxiety about pulling out in front of a semi. Because you're going to try to beat them. Can you imagine doing it in something that's got a twin turbo big block Chevy in it, that's got an aftermarket ECU, it's got this tune up that you put in it yourself? What if it stumbles and dies?
Right. And
you know what I mean?
You're hung out in the middle of traffic.
Yeah.
It really is an incredible thing. And I think that if I have a slew of takeaways from this deal, but it really is about that. It's about that drive. I look at the drag and drive scene, and what I see, and this is a loving term, is I see pontoon boats, right? Whenever I think of this, I use the analogy that comes to mind is a jet ski, a personal watercraft, versus a pontoon boat that you can share with your family, right? You can use it a bunch of different ways. And I think if you look at drag racing, it really is a super selfish sport. I mean, even no matter what people want to say about bracket racing being a particularly participant-driven sport, not a segment of the drag racing universe that draws a crowd or whatever, all of this stuff, from Top Fuel to freaking pro stock to pro mod to drag radial and everything in between, it's selfish. It's brutally selfish, right? You've got 10, 20 people that have helped you, sponsors, all these people that are invested in it, but there's one guy out there getting to kind of enjoy the ride of a lifetime, the thrill of a lifetime, a couple times a day during most drag racing events. However, you come out to Sick Week, you go out to Hot Rod Drag Week, you go to Rocky Mountain Race Week, and many of these events are popping up left and right, it would seem. Now, you got a pontoon boat that everybody can ride on. You know what I mean? Everybody's piled in the car, and they're a part of it. And I think that may be the part of this that I have enjoyed the most, is seeing the amount of fathers and daughters, fathers and sons, brothers, husbands and wives. And I'm not trying to turn this into some sort of Hallmark movie, but it really is cool to see. And as someone heavily invested in the future, I can't say how important it is to set that hook in the next generation, right? I mean, and it's oftentimes hard to do that. Mike and I both grew up in racing households, right? My dad raced. Mike's dad basically invented pro modified drag racing. And it's like, you kind of stand back and watch, you know what I mean? Like, you're invested, you're busting your knuckles, you're loading the car in the trailer, but dad's out there doing his deal and you're far removed from it. You know, a lot of the funnest parts you're well away from. And the best seat in the house is being the guy pulling him into the beams or, you know, setting the wheelie bars or whatever. That's about as good as it gets for a crew guy. And for a lot of people, that's enough. And I get it. It's been enough for me. But to see this and to see these guys running up and down the road, it's impressive, man. It's I totally understand and have a newfound appreciation for this particular style of racing. And I don't know about you, Nate, but I couldn't be happier that we did this.
Oh, yeah. And to your point about, you know, fathers and sons, fathers and daughters, you know, family, there are so many young people out here.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. It's very youthful.
Yeah, I mean, the drivers are young. The guys helping out with the cars are young. The photographers and video guys, they're all young. And this is going to be what's going to help take the sport forward. You know, these pro mods on the street and these fast door cars.
Technologically savvy, media savvy young people that know that this is part of it. One of the things that really stuck out to me in Bradenton, we stopped by Bradenton when you guys were still with us at Bradenton Motorsports Park. We rolled up on Tom Bailey, and, you know, Tom obviously draws a crowd. I'm assuming wherever this man goes, he likely draws a crowd, you know. But we roll up on that, and I stood there. I mean, it was a bit of a science experiment. I stood there for like an hour, and I watched, and I bet Tom did, no exaggeration, a dozen interviews, ranging from one with me, where I sat down and talked to him for 5 or 6 minutes, a little bit more focused, to people walking up and sticking a camera in his face and getting a one-liner from him. Other major outlets or whatever, like the 1320 videos, coming up and doing like fairly focused, in-depth interviews, one after another, while he's working on the car. Like, they're over there with a welder trying to fix a header tube, doing this, that, and the other. And he's still handling all those media obligations. And I don't mean to call anybody out or talk trash, but can you imagine any NHRA pro level driver being willing to contend with that? People trying to talk. Most of these guys don't want to be bothered, and gals, while they pack their parachutes, while they put fuel in the car, which are their primary responsibilities.
And you see these guys, all the work that these guys are doing, and still do the media. And they've got like 1, maybe 2 crew guys at the most, but it's very hands-on, and the access is very open for, like you said, guys. You may not call it a media outlet. Maybe it's a guy with a YouTube page or just an interest in what he's doing, and he's allowed the same access as we are, or anyone else. And it's a very cool deal. Bradenton, I remember when we rolled in. Well, I mean, just to recap, JT and I were actually all 4 of us. We were on hand on Sunday, went to the opening party at the Freedom Factory on Sunday night, kind of got a preview of the cars that were going to be there. Everyone's hanging out, having a good time. Energy is high. Then the next morning, we roll in. We were talking to Luke, who's running pretty much Sick the Magazine, running this event. He's kind of he's our interface with this deal. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Hey guys, be here early because the A cars, the unlimited cars go out first thing, 9 a.m. So we roll in 9 a.m. and we're thinking, man, we're going to be the first ones here. Not the case. Staging lanes are already full. We're having a hard time getting in, finding a parking spot, and there are a ton of spectators there. So it's especially for that event, maybe the first one on the stop, tons of people coming out to kind of see these guys off.
Be that guy, but there is a crowd here at Gainesville Raceway today that many a heads-up drag race would be envious of. And there was a crowd at Bradenton on Monday morning, to your point, Mike, that made me almost blush. Like there's a lot of people here, to watch what amounts to testing. Because that's the other part of this. And we had a really long conversation last night with Chad Reynolds from Bang Shift and Dennis Taylor about this isn't competition in the traditional drag racing sense where there's a ladder or a qualifying order or whatever, and you've got somebody that you've got to run. This is more of a personal conquest-driven deal. And I think that's perhaps, I don't want to say the secret weapon, but you're not worried about, man, can I run against Tommy Franklin? I don't have any chance. I mean, this is more about competing against yourself, your own mechanical and physical wherewithal, the wherewithal of your vehicle.
And due to that, it opens it up. I mean, we've seen it already. Dave Schroeder and Tom Bailey, two of really the heaviest hitters out there, 5-second capable cars, are both already out of this deal due to, not because they can't go make a 5-second lap, but just due to the mechanical wear and tear that these things endure. And so that really opens it up. It really levels the playing field. And even in the unlimited class or in the A class, in the highest levels, it levels that playing field. It's almost like having no prep or
it's a marathon.
I mean, it's a marathon. We've talked about it, what all the various
question to you guys, and try to start this conversation amongst our entire community. One of the things that I'm noticing here today at Bradenton, even at Orlando Speed World yesterday, the media presence is it lost on our entire industry, perhaps, like in traditional drag racing, how important media is? Like, it feels like so many of drag racing's highest levels, and I guess here's looking at you, NHRA, make it difficult, create a lot of barriers to entry. And I understand not letting it devolve into some sort of calamity and disaster with people everywhere. But I wonder how much, is there a way to step back and go, man, what was the earned media value of this event? There's a ton of cameras here. I mean, I think every GoPro ever made is in Gainesville, Florida right now. Every single one of them. Like Travis Pastrana doesn't have any. They're all here. And I think people maybe are sleeping on the value of that, because that is the difference maker in these scenes. That's what's the difference. The reason there's people here on what day is this? Wednesday. The reason their stands have people in them on a Wednesday morning or Wednesday afternoon at this point, and did Monday morning, is there's all sorts of people telling this story from their perspective. And every one of those people have a following, have people that, follow them and hang on every word they say, or at least are influenced by them and go, you know what? I want to check this out. I wonder if they're, late last year, we saw NHRA welcome in 1320video.com, which I found was interesting because this is a YouTube channel that's been built on the back of illegal street racing. And I always wondered if there would ever be a moment when NHRA was like, okay with that. Like, hey, we know what you do, for a living, but we want you to come here and experience this. And I hope that maybe is a sign of things to come, because bringing all these influencers, and I know that term is very icky for some reason. It's become icky, and it's.
I don't see why it's icky at all. Like that's fucking ridiculous.
Have you noticed that though?
It pisses me off that people even think that. I'm serious. It's like, oh my God, Lord forbid that people look up for you and you can influence a generation of racers or something. I mean, how dare you call me that?
Yeah,
get out of here.
Oh man,
that's ridiculous. I tell you something else that was cool. Like just driving through these towns. Like we were coming through this one town. Of course, a bunch of guys at the gas station. Everybody, standing around gawking at them, and it's so cool when they take over a gas station. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And then they're going through town for a checkpoint, and all the guys at this tire shop are piled out the door, just standing out there watching. There was a couple cars pulled into an auto zone, just pulled up to the road and, watching the road and trying to just catch a glimpse of these guys going down the road. You get to a checkpoint and fathers have their sons there to check out all the cool cars rolling in. A couple burnouts happened maybe, but that was cool too.
It's amazing because if you think about awesome. that back road America that we were enjoying, we rolled into an ice cream shop last night, Hoot Owl Farmhouse Ice Cream or whatever. And like the conversation that was happening amongst the racers and the everybody that was involved, like, that place had the best month they've had in 8 years.
And that's a point of these guys when they're actually making that route. They even say on there, go to Old Town, get a photo, and then please stay and enjoy Old Town. Grab a drink, grab something to eat there at those restaurants. It's almost like they picked out places that they knew that they could help with that type of deal.
Yep.
I mean, that ice cream place we were at last night, we bought them out of ice cream. Yeah. When Nate and I rolled in there, we had quite a rough go of it from Orlando to Gainesville. Alex Taylor's old 55 Chevy. We were stopping on the side of the road, lost a couple of times, made some U-turns on back roads out in some swamp. It was quite the deal. But I look at that and we roll into the ice cream store at 8 or 9 o'clock last night. It was late. They were almost out of everything. They told us that, hey, the people from Sick Week, the organizers, had reached out to us, but we didn't realize how many people. We thought a couple hundred, but there was like several hundred people showed up.
And then you have the Sick Ward, and then you have all the fans, right?
Yeah, the Sick Ward too.
The largest size, all that you have, because we want to support these businesses. And the way we were treated at gas stations, restaurants, it was truly special, man. I look back at this and I feel like it's going to be like a marker in my life. Like there's before I went on a drag and drive event and then after I went.
Oh, yeah, because every one of us left there. Or you guys are still there. But like we're all like after the first day, we're building a couple of these for next year. I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's happening. It's already. It's already happened. Yeah, we need to start a
class. Yeah, we're coming in. And honestly, back Wes, your point about the media, we've talked many times about how there's the YouTube, the youth car culture that's on YouTube and these other media platforms, and how that's building. That's a big wave that's coming. This is sort of like the organized event, the coming out party for that type of racer, that type of hot rod enthusiast, and that type of media person. And so you're seeing that. You're all those cameras that are there, the people in the stands, all the people in the staging lanes on the starting line, and the competitors themselves comprise that youth-oriented YouTube influence culture that we're talking about. And so it's really kind of a watershed event to me for that movement, more so than a traditional NHRA race or PDRA race or any other sanctioning body.
And I want to say this because, and I hope a lot of these drag and drive guys see this and hear this. I hope that the Sick Week competitors hear this because I'm proud of them. Like the sport of drag racing should be proud of these people because they're taking matters into their own hands. JT, how many times have you and I, over the course of many, many, many years doing this show, on the pages of the magazine, Mike, Nate, encouraged racers like you cannot wait on Fox to stick a camera in your face. You cannot wait on ESPN to come to your doorstep and interview you. You walk the staging lanes right now, I swear to you, are filled to the brim with bad to the bone drag racing vehicles. In every single one of them, I'm obviously being dramatic, but every single one of them has 2-3 GoPros mounted in the windshield looking at the car, one on the roof looking at where they're going. They've got 2 or 3 crew guys or friends with cameras. They recognize they're taking matters into their own hands. They're not waiting for the world to come to them, right?
They're getting their content. They're getting it already. Yep.
Just when I look at every other walk of the drag racing life, from NHRA to PDRA to NMCA to every organized style of drag racing, I don't see that. And the people that do it are the outliers. So like there's a lesson to be learned here.
Well, so maybe like YouTube and Facebook, maybe it's basically the old Sonic Drive-In or whatever, the old Scrubs and Dud. You build these things, you want people to see them. Yes. You're proud of that shit, So you're going to go out on Friday night, run to Sonic, meet up with everybody or whatever, wherever your car club does, cars and coffee, whatever it is, but you want to show it off. You want to talk about what you've done. You want to tell them, look at this picture, how it started, but here's another platform where you can do it on. And in this day and age, you've got to use it.
Right.
And,
I mean, in
you want people to see it,
you've
right?
got the whole world. You can bring with you to your local cars and coffee, and you go to an NHRA national event, or you go to so many. I mean, every person here, and it's actually been a very a personal blessing for me to see how many people are so comfortable doing this. Mm-hmm. Hey gang, blah, 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 because I've often felt like a real toolbox. Like
you look like it when you're doing it. No, I'm
you know what I mean? Like
I walk away.
Because I can, how do you say? I recognize that it's uncomfortable and difficult. I really do. And I understand why
getting past that is like the first step. That's the hardest
step. Right?
That is the hardest step. But to see how many people are comfortable in their own skin, you know what I mean? Like these are the type of people, and I'm going to wax poetic here, but these are the people you want your kids to grow up to be. Comfortable in their own skin, proud of who they are, willing to share their opinion, willing to put themselves out there, willing to be different, willing to say what they think, because there's a whole freaking generation of people that are terrified of saying what they think, terrified of putting themselves out there for fear of persecution, getting canceled, whatever else. Everybody's afraid to say anything. In this politically correct world that we live in, everybody's afraid of burning a bridge or pissing someone off. And I'm looking around at hundreds, if not thousands of people that are letting it all hang out, man. And if you like what I'm doing, subscribe, follow, be a part of it. And if you don't, right? And it's a really impressive thing.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with using those numbers too. Then turning around and using those numbers to try to get some sponsorship help. And if you do have a voice in drag racing, or you do have a following, that's why you're putting yourself out there. Is maybe it will make it a little bit easier to grab that guy, grab that company, come on board with you, give you some parts, and make this trip easier. I mean, you love this stuff, and you're going to need help. It's expensive.
And these guys do a good job of promoting it too. Like we were following that one GMC Sonoma or something, I think it was, with the their YouTube and Turbo V6 with their IG handle,
on the Turbo, back glass.
Yeah, they had it in their back glass, and we tagged them in a post. So just getting that out there.
Said the DI crew was on their 6,
right? Just getting that out there is huge. But so many times, very few actual drag racing cars actually have their handle
Instagram
on there.
Handle.
Yeah, their Instagram handle. Just
notice when Brian Loans comes on,
he uses it on here.
Yep. See, I'm dumb. I just have my nickname.
Yeah, we're dumb, team.
Right, we're all dumb, and I suppose that we should change that now and learn from it. But I think that there's a really incredible thing happening here where people recognize the value of building their own brand. Yep. Recognize that is a difference maker in this day and age. They're deciding to lean into their shtick, and that's something that I think kind of lacks on the NHRA corporate pro level drag racing side. Is that everybody's so vanilla, so corporate, afraid to step on any toes, afraid to be themselves. They're trying to be what they think they're supposed to be, right? Collared shirt and the logos everywhere and buttoned up in every way, shape, and form. And what I see here is people that are kind of leaning into their personality, well knowing that it's not going to be for everybody, right? Not everybody's going to like the way I cuss and rant and rave like a sailor. Not everybody's going to like the way I treat my car, because that's one thing that's interesting here is you see one car that's pristine, show quality, but then the next car is like 3/4 primer, covered in mud, back glass blown out of it, and they don't care.
Kind of a Frankenstein mod type of thing. I mean, you've got both ends of it. And in fact, that's one of my favorite things about the deal. I was gonna say we need to go around and kind of voice what we liked, what we saw that was different. And to me, the amount, like you said, the variety of cars, but this deal is like a Tri-5 heaven. If you like 55, 56, and 57 Chevys, there are at least a dozen, if not more, just awesome examples. And some of them, there's like the shit box of doom or whatever's there, with the distressed look. But then there's some beautiful cars. We got behind that gray 55 Chevy. We saw him on the road. We got Alex's car. There's an orange and gray 55 Chevy that is running in the unlimited class that I haven't caught the guy's name yet, but just some beautiful cars. It reminds me of just kind of the heydays.
Must be the orange grinder.
The heydays of the Super Chevy show, when just Tri-5s kind of ruled the world, and the early days of Pro Mod when shoeboxes and Tri-5s were all the rage. And it reminds me that this is a platform where that big lead sled or whatever you want to call the thing can still be competitive. And we've almost run that kind of car out of high level door slammer drag racing. And to see these cars, someone seeking or, starting out to build that car, knowing well the limitations aerodynamically and whatever else that a car like that can have, but they're just so badass that they do it anyway. I love seeing that kind of stuff going against the grain.
It's, for me, it's important, and we've talked about this as a group a lot, how we feel at Drag Illustrated and this show and everything that we do. We want to serve as a galvanizing force. We want to bring this group of people together because we can accomplish a lot more and we can go a lot farther as a group, right? They often say, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, go in a group. And that's what I see the sport of drag racing kind of lacking at times, is we need to be trying to go together. We need to be trying to go to the next location, that proverbial next level. We need to be trying to do that together. And I told Tom Bailey this morning along the guard wall here at Gainesville, I don't know that I've ever been to a drag race or really a motorsports event of any type where on-track competition is involved, outside the realm of like car shows and trade shows and things like that, that's so eclectic. I mean, there's a dozen Honda Civics here. There's a Mini Cooper here with the turbo on it. There's every Fox body Mustang ever made is here.
Trucks,
cars, new cars, trucks, diesels. An Escalade with some sort of exotic turbo LS deal in it.
John Deere tractor,
Tesla. Yeah, I mean, just a little everything. I mean, it's so funny when you start walking
Tesla's
around.
Gutted out. The whole interior of that Tesla is gutted.
It is. Yeah.
Is there another place though? I mean, I challenge you to tell me where else are you going to bring that group of people together and not have them be all cliquish? Because if you go to the NHRA National, and I feel like I'm bagging on them, but I'm just saying traditional drag racing, they put all the bracket cars over here, right? They put all the juniors over there. The pro guys are there. The pro stock bikes are there. Everybody has their place. And for the most part, there's a lot of separation. Yeah. There's not a lot of line crossing, boundary crossing. You kind of stay in your spot and you're part of your group. I mean, I'm watching right now as a freaking Honda Civic wagon rolls up to the water box, and there's not a single person here at Sick Week 2022 that's going to treat whoever's driving B109G Honda Civic any different than Tom Bailey. Like, you're part of this scene. And look at that. Speak of the devil, here comes our twin turbo Cadillac Escalade, four-wheel drive Escalade, right? But I don't know that there's another place where people are just part of a singular community. This is what we do. We're all drag and drive guys. We're all Sick Week guys and gals, excuse me. And
it's all about making the journey together.
There's no discrimination.
Like Tom said, Tom's shirt says that for the King Adventure right on the back of it. And, and here's a guy, Tom, he's worked to put the show on. He's out, but he's still there. And he's still going to, I'm sure, be right there front and center all the way through the end of the adventure. And that's what these guys are all in together. It's all about making it to the end.
And I think that that's an important part of this, where it's not as much about, there's certainly people here that are taking this shit mega serious, right? And they want to win. They want to win their category. They want to be the guy or gal. But there's also a whole world of people who are just here to be part of it. And if you think back, like you said, for the adventure, to be there at the end, to cross the finish line, so to speak, I honestly think that if you think of some of the heydays of the ADRL, Pro Nitrous, Pro Extreme days, the heyday of Radial versus the World, how many cars entered Radial versus the World at Lights Out 7, 8, 9 that had no chance? Maybe likely wouldn't qualify, certainly had no chance to win, but they wanted to be there and be a part of it, right? I remember ADRL, Pro Extreme, and Pro Nitrous much the same way. right? I mean, there were cars there that only get raced once a year, that they got slammed together over the course of a relatively short period of time because they just wanted to be there when the freaking big show rolled into town or this craziness rolled into town. That's what's happening here. And that's the lightning in a bottle, where it's not as much about whether or not your name's at the top of the sheet or the bottom. It's about being a part of it. It's about being guilty by association. And I don't know how other walks of the drag racing life can grab that. Maybe you can't. But that is a big part of the magic here, that it's not about winning and losing. It's about being a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Drag, drive, repeat. Head up to the lanes in the black 29 Model A with green flames.
Are they already up here? Okay.
Yep.
There are a lot of cars here still trying to make runs. It really is interesting. And the thing that I find kind of fun to talk about is the various strategies that are at play, right? There are cars that come up here that are like, I just want to get a time slip. Say that I did it.
Because they want to finish, right? Yeah.
Then there are other people that are going, all right, it didn't make a good run. We need to try to make another. We need to try to make another. And that's where a whole other strategy comes into play, is there's so many cars that there's no guarantee that you're going to get to make that second run, that you're going to get to make that third run. So we can spend all the time talking we want about how laid back and easygoing this is. But that first pass, I have to imagine, is as pressure-packed as it can possibly be.
You want to lay it down and get
you
out of here.
Make a good one.
Yep.
It's going to be a long day. I mean, there's
long time.
You're not going to get to run right back up here and try again.
Longtime photographer James Sisk just messaged me and said, do it in a 12-second car, and it's just as much fun. And he wanted to thank you for selling that back to him, by the way.
Yeah, he's going to rub that in.
But I mean,
that would have been a perfect car for it, you know?
It really was a perfect car for it. And that's the thing that I think is the craziest about this. However, we talk about all these cars that are just here for a lot of the cars that are just here for the adventure run in the 850s in the quarter mile. Yeah. Or like a lot of the cars that are just here for the thrill run high sevens. You know,
we talked about that. How it's just gotten. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the cars. Right. Alex Taylor said that in that interview last night that we posted at the ice cream shop. She goes, it's weird. And we talked about this a little bit before we started the interview, but 7-second runs in the quarter mile are kind of like the new 9s. Right. I mean, I remember when it was a big deal. If you could tell someone that you had a single digit race car, like if you had a car or street car, specifically a street car, if you had a street car that ran in the 9s, I mean, it's still that way today. I mean, that's a fast car. People that don't understand the intricacies of this stuff, or maybe haven't been around it, don't understand how much power, how much car it takes to run a 9 in the quarter mile.
Like normalize that with all the technology and these things like Teslas, even, and what they can run just straight out of the box. I mean, it has kind of made it, but I feel like even street cars, like even when you're going 80, 90 miles an hour on the highway and the damn thing, it's almost like we're numb to it because everything is going so fast now. And to your previous point too, about how everything out there kind of, even if you're there for the adventure, the competition level ratchets up. Alex talked about that last night too, in your interview, that prior to now, I mean, this is really her bread and butter type of event, that it's like, I just want to go have fun, make some good runs, have a good time with my family, make it through this deal and say I did it. And now they've built this 55, and then she ran her career best ET on Monday at Bradenton, and she's starting to like get an itch for.
She got the two top guys out too.
Yeah, like competition. She's getting more competitive. She's like, I want to run 6s. I want to win this deal, and I want to go faster. So it's kind of taken someone like her and made her more focused on making good runs and improving the performance, whereas she's like a drag and drive adventure type of person to the core. So it's interesting to see how that progression has happened and to hear her talk about that.
Like the moving goalpost, and every day you're basically faced with like a new set of goals. Like, well, we blew up everything yesterday, so now we just need to try to limp to the end. And it's fun because I think that's the part of this that maybe is unique to other events. Like if you don't qualify at the NHRA Gator Nationals coming up next month right here at Gainesville Raceway Park. Like, you're loading your shit up on Saturday night and going home, right? You're done. The adventure is over at that point. Tried, we failed. It's
all upset, miserable,
kicking rocks.
It's the worst day of your life. Out here, something bad goes wrong. You're like, well,
there's still a way to experience victory.
Yeah.
Because even Tom Bailey, he looked us square in the face and he told us on the show a couple of weeks ago that his personal goal was to run a 5 every day.
Right.
And whenever he said it, I'm like, wow, that's a tall order. It wasn't that long ago, like 2 years ago, that he'd never run a 5 ever. And I think, to the best of my knowledge, it's only happened once. Now the goal is to do it every day. But I sat down with him, and he had been bottom 6s, 630 something maybe there in Bradenton. And he looked at me and was like, well, plans have changed, right? I'm not going to be able to run 5s every day. But it wasn't like he was just going to quit. Wasn't going to load it up and, took an L this weekend, didn't do what we set out to do.
You still never know what's going to happen. I mean, it's almost like a point series packed in a week. That's a good point. We didn't run the number we wanted to, but okay, we're still making hits, and you never know what's going to happen around you, right? Like, everybody could back up to you, or go out. So
to some extent, it borrows a little bit from these big money bracket races where there's like a Thursday race, and there's a 20 grander on Thursday, a 20 grander on Friday, a 50 grander on Saturday, and then we're going to run for $5,000 on Sunday. And I think that's part of what's driving the success of big money bracket race. And bracket racing, everybody wants to point to the money, that it's tons of money and the cars aren't as expensive as a Pro Mod or a Pro Stock car or a radial tire car. But I think what it is back to our pontoon boat. You can run the shit out of this thing. You get to do a whole lot of burnouts. You get to race a lot. And inside of one event, the million, the fling races, you're going to get to race a lot. There's a lot of opportunities to use this piece of equipment, this piece of machinery that you've got all this time and energy and money invested in. That's what is at play here, is that things don't go well Monday, you got Tuesday. Things don't go well Tuesday, you got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? There's you're getting a lot of mileage, no pun intended, out of this investment. And it's a pontoon boat investment. Look at like Dave Schroeder,
boats are not technically they're not known as the greatest investment. Don't take financial advice from the Drag Illustrated show here.
No,
not great investments. But go back to Dave Schroeder. Is there another person? For those that don't know Dave Schroeder, check out our YouTube channel. He was on the show here a couple of months ago after he won Hot Rod Drag Week 2021 in the unlimited category with his quickly becoming legendary C7 Corvette Pro Mod with an 872 cubic inch rear Morrison engine in it. Dave looked at me Monday morning and said that, man, I put 5,000 miles on that engine. I bet David Rear's head exploded.
He did. He said it has. He said the guys at Rear shake their heads when I tell them I put 5,000 miles on this motor.
You put 5,000 miles on an engine. I mean,
I guess he should have refreshed it.
Yeah, he maybe should have freshened it up. But if you think about it, Mike, every pro nitrous car on the planet Earth goes to the staging lanes with the engine chilled.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I noticed. The radiators, that's the first thing I noticed when these guys pull the noses off these cars. The radiator is as big as the trailer that they're pulling behind them because you're not allowed to chill or anything like that. And so, that alone, just the heat in a nitrous car too, the heat that builds up and for that thing to live. Now it didn't work out on sick week, but that thing's a legendary piece already.
Consistent as the day is long. And he's driving it around the Freedom Factory oval track, driving through the grass, beating this thing along. And I just think I could just see my father, right? Just crawling out of his skin that the car was dirty, let alone being beaten through a ditch or whatever. Last night.
But then they're driving them on the sand, and they even had to make a post on the Sick Week page. Like, hey guys, if you drove on Daytona Beach yesterday, please check every crevice of your car so you don't.
You'll never get that out. I mean, that shit is like
drop the
glitter,
hammer,
like glitter at a strip club.
Yeah, you drop the hammer on the starting line and turn it into a beach.
There was 2 instances yesterday while I was driving with Nate from Orlando to Gainesville that I thought were interesting. One was we pulled over, I can't remember the name of the town, Titusville, Florida. Titusville, Florida. We pull over at Pier 220, this restaurant right on the Atlantic Ocean. It's beautiful. I got to make sure that they don't give this kid any shit for being down here with his dad, or I'm going to kill somebody.
Hey, real quick, I'm going to jump in. Gordon Dornan, is it true the fans can do the trip from track to track with their cars? Absolutely.
Yes. Absolutely.
In fact, they've got a whole division, I guess you could say, called the Sick Ward, which are people that have bought an entry to the event and are basically only making the trip with everyone. They've even got food provided by food trucks for them. It's a whole deal. It's like kind of like a VIP experience if you want to get involved in the deal.
Yeah, it looks really cool. And we how many cars, families do we see on that deal in Mustangs and convertibles? Got their kids with them, and man, that was really awesome to see. I really like that. There was another comment back here I wanted to hit on real quick, and this would be a great idea
I'll tell
to
my
do.
story while I make sure nobody gives this kid a hard time.
Maybe DI could help pair military vets with some of the teams and follow as an inside reporter for DI to highlight segments. That would be really cool to do some year. If you could
win.
Yep. That'd be bad.
We're all for it. There's a really cool car on the starting line right now, 55 Chevy Nomad, and it's a really nice guy that I met earlier, and I'm drawing blank on his name, but his son is Blaine, and the kid looks like he's maybe 12, and that's the only person that he has with him. And he was worried about going up on the starting line with his dad at a major track, and I said, just go up there and tell him I said it was okay. Because he's his dad's only help.
Yeah.
He's his father's only help, and I just want to make sure nobody gives him a hard time. But anyways, it looks
What's
like
up, Dave Nelson? Big shout out Dave
here.
Nelson.
Bought us some drinks.
Hey, great to see you, Dave.
Yeah, man. It was awesome to see you.
Awesome.
Thanks for everything, all the support, and we definitely added to the DI booze budget. Appreciate that.
Yes, thank you very much. But I'll touch back on one of the things that's been fun to see is people not being afraid to start their stuff up. Yesterday, we stopped at this restaurant, Pier 220, and there was a slew of photographers there, and they wanted to get like the perfect shot of Alex Taylor's 55 Chevy with the ocean in the background. So she pulls up and parks it. This thing's got wheelie bars on it. It's pulling a trailer. It's got a twin turbo big block Chevy in it. And they're like, can you move it forward? So they like jump in it, start it up, move it forward, and gets out, whatever. And everybody's taking the picture like, there's a light pole in the background. Can you back it up? And I'm thinking, there's no drag racer that I know that would start their car up 15 times.
No, we pushing it.
Hey, cut the light pole out in Photoshop or get
right?
Because we've done all the moving our car around. I mean, do you know how many photographers and media members in the drag racing industry have been scared to death to ask a racer to put the doors on their car?
They know what answer they're going to
get, right? Like, hey, I mean, seriously, I've had photographers come to me like, hey, I really want to do a photo shoot with so-and-so's car, but I don't know him that well, and I'm scared to death to ask him to take it down to the top end so I can shoot it outside of their pits. And it sucks that's exists a lot at a lot of these drag races. But here's this, Alex Taylor literally jumped in that thing, backed it up. We're trying to move the trailer so it doesn't jackknife and take out the quarter panel on this thing. But they're so willing to do that and put these things to use. It's really genuinely incredible. Last night, we didn't realize, Nate and I, being drag and drive newcomers, right? We didn't fully understand like the rules. So we were leaving checkpoint number 2 and they said, okay, guys, take us to the hotel. We were serving as like the lead vehicle for a caravan. So I said, so we're done, no more checkpoints? And they're like, yeah. Just get us to the hotel. So Nate throws it in the GPS, the quickest route to the hotel, and we take off. We get 10 miles down the road, and Dennis Taylor and Alex are behind us, and they're texting me like, we're going the wrong way. We need to stop. We need to go a different way. And I'm like, no, we're not. I know this is the right way. I've already looked at it. And they're like, no, we have to take a certain route or we'll get disqualified. And I'm like, okay. I thought we were done. I thought we made the last checkpoint and now we just need to get to the hotel. No, you have to take the predetermined route. So we're on 10-foot wide 2-lane road in the middle of Florida swampland. Pitch black, nowhere to turn around. I mean, it was sketchy.
Good job, guys. Good job as the lead vehicle.
Yeah, I know.
That's a short-lived gig.
And I'm like, how far are we going to have to drive until we can find a safe place to turn around a 7-second, 200-mile-an-hour 55 Chevy pulling a trailer? Like, there's not going to be a good spot. He had just told me, glad we got gas and got something to eat and drink because it's a ghost town till we get to Gainesville. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to have to make these people U-turn on a farm road. So, like, I pull over and bounce through the ditch, swing out wide and turn around. I did it. I got as far enough on a
Blue Hippo is all-wheel drive, so you're good.
Yeah, I know. The Infinity is delivering. But my only option was to pull in the middle of the road and kind of tell Nate I love him and care about him, but we may take, a car to the chest if we're going to save these race cars from getting hit. So we're sitting on this stretch of road, and I'm flashing my bright lights crooked across both lanes, trying to give Alex Taylor and this other 57 Chevy and another El Camino and a handful of other cars the opportunity to turn around. They're out there with flashlights trying to get the cars turned around, and I'm like, oh my God. Fortunately, we have lived to tell that story here today, but it's those type of adventures that I don't know about you and those guys, we'll never forget. We'll be telling this story 25 years from now about being in some backwoods area in Florida trying to get a bunch of race cars spun around and headed the other direction, driving through neighborhoods last night. It was a whole deal. But
on Monday, we even commented on it because we had the sheet that had the route and we didn't even put it in the GPS. And we were just like, as long as we stay up with everybody, right, and see some sick week cars, we know we're on the right path. And we're like, this is old school. Like, we're not even gonna put it in the GPS. We're not even gonna map it. We just followed it like we were in 1999 with the printed out MapQuest directions.
How much
it was pretty fun.
This whole thing has, for me, it feels like a trip back in time. That we literally to think about. I mean, do you remember like jumping in the truck with I remember I would always print out my MapQuest directions, and because I'm big time and because I'm super professional and organized, I put that shit in a manila folder.
You don't want to print it twice, man. Especially if it's full color.
Stay full color. What do you think? I'm broke? Full color.
We ain't printing that twice though. One time.
Yeah, ads and everything. You know what I mean? I didn't print it just the directions. I printed it with everything, with the Amazon banner ad at the top, the Red Wing Works boots ad at the bottom. You print out the instructions, staple them, maybe even have a backup set, put them in a manila folder or an envelope, right? And to go back in time yesterday and be like, trying to read this, we almost lost the directions into the Atlantic Ocean.
This far away from falling into the water.
Literally. I ran over and stomped on the sheet of paper 3 inches before it fell into the Atlantic Ocean. And it was funny because I was sending a couple of pictures and like our directions, our route sheet was destroyed. We're trying to read it. It's got a boot stomp on the top of it. But I miss that. And
it sounds like you guys really went to hell after me and T left.
It does.
Sounds like we were holding this deal together.
We're
the glue.
Yeah, you guys may have been the glue, but it really.
Is there a sick week bar crawl that I didn't know about?
Is there?
I don't know.
We kind of did our own bar crawl Sunday through Tuesday.
They're looking for you to start that in 2023.
I don't know.
One of the coolest things for me, especially yesterday, was because they strategically planned out these routes as little interstate as possible. So you're driving through these little towns, and especially in Florida, there's so much tourism. You're driving past all these old little motels that you can just picture, 68 Camaros and 57 Chevys lined up, back in the day. It's so cool to see all that old Florida.
I've never been to Daytona.
Flash of the past.
That was a ball. Right, yeah, we're driving through, and everything's really cool, like a themed restaurant. You know what I mean? Like giant wizard out front.
The world's largest concrete alligator.
World's largest concrete alligator. Yeah. Seeing all that stuff, it was super nostalgic. And I would challenge anybody that hasn't participated in one of these events to give it a shot, because even if you don't think it's your cup of tea, or one of the other things that I'm recognizing is that while there are certainly the Tom Baileys, the Steve Morrises, the Dennis Taylors, people who could build one of these cars from scratch, or, service an engine on the side of the road without a whole lot of stress and anxiety, there's also a slew of people here in like relatively mild street cars or bone stock vehicles that, again, going back to our earlier conversation, that are just want to be part of it. So it's not like you have to be
or just getting started in maybe they're on a build. Yeah. Maybe it's a build that's halfway through or just getting started, or they're not a drag racing expert and they kind of want to see what this deal's all about. You know what I mean? That it's a great entry point. So you don't have to be Mr. Badass with a 5-second car to go out there and feel like you belong. It runs the full gamut, which is a very, very cool part of it.
It really is.
Yeah, you don't see that at many other events, like at an NHRA national event. Even at the very lowest level, you have to have a pretty solid race car to go to one of those races. Whereas here, there's a guy with, like you said, a pretty much bone stock car, and he's in the same staging lanes with Tom Bailey's 5-second Pro Mod, or Cletus McFarland with 2 million YouTube followers. They're in the same staging lanes. They're pulling up to the same ice cream stand, and that's a great point unique.
Because in very few other instances is there an opportunity to like pit next to John Force, right? You can't do that. You have to have a Nitro Funny car to pit next to John Force, and there's probably other things. You got to be somebody, right, to get that close.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Not the case here. You're in the staging lanes with all these people that some of them have huge followings. There's all these YouTubers here, and it's truly an amazing thing. Also, going back to asking racers to be willing to put themselves out here, how many people have we seen here? Mike and JT, while you were here, you guys were paying attention to like Instagram handles, YouTube channels, and things like that. They said some of these people don't have millions of followers, but they still have managed to turn their brand or their racing into a business. I mean, the young lady with the orange Cadillac, drawing blank on her name right now.
Felicia Smith, I believe.
Felicia Smith. She's got like 45 or 50,000 followers on Instagram. But if you go check out her page, her Instagram profile, it's full of like sponsored content. She's doing product reviews. She's talking about things. She's turned her racing into a business. And she's got a Cadillac CTSV. I mean, it's fast, don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to, diminish what she has, but she's turned that in a U-Haul trailer into like a more significant platform than a whole lot of people's top fuel cars.
Yeah. Can't start at the top, man. That's like what we talk about. Can't wait.
I mean, that's crazy
until you're at the top to start doing that kind of stuff. And she'll build her way up there.
How many times have we heard that? Well, I want to do that, but I want to wait till we're like setting records and winning every race and dominating. I literally had this conversation with a client 6 months ago. I was talking to him about, he was asking me, came to me like, hey, what do you think we should be doing? What do you think we should, and I was trying to give him some of my opinion. Obviously, I don't know what it's worth. And I'm going, I would be putting myself out there. I would be telling this story. I would start right now connecting with people and developing a following and developing a fan. Well, we've struggled this year. And I'm like, that's what's going to make it interesting, right? Like if you just go out and win, I don't know that many people are going to be that excited about it or that interested in what's going on. If you just start at the top, you start at the finish line, you start at the peak of the mountain, we want to see you climb the son of a bitch, right? Yep, and right. I just don't really want to. We wanted to do this on YouTube and we wanted to buy some ads and we wanted to promote the bit, but we really just want to wait till everything's tip top.
And the adventure is over then. The adventure is what we want to see. And the adventure is what this event is all about. And that's why it's so attractive to so many people.
And Megan Meyer comes to mind as someone who I think has done it exceptionally well. And obviously she's retired and stepped away from the sport of drag racing. But, at the height of her top alcohol dragster stardom and success, she was, in my opinion, really driving the point that you don't have to race top fuel. You do not have to race Nitro Funny Car or Pro Stock or Pro Mod to develop a following and to develop, to have a platform that's significant, that companies, that businesses can leverage. And that's a big takeaway from this for me.
Guess what those businesses call those people? Influencers.
Here we go.
Yeah. And when we met with people at MPMC, we heard a lot from these companies who like to invest in influencers. So put that in your
keep
pipe.
that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. That developing a voice and developing something of a brand. Don't wait till you've got your nitro license, right? Don't wait till you've got that NHRA top fuel license secured to start that process. You need to start it now. Another thing that I find interesting, and we had a big conversation about this yesterday, and we can probably use Alex Taylor as an example. We can quasi use Tom Bailey as an example, but even here where the cars are very front and center, it's not all about the cars, right? Because Alex Taylor, she became known for driving an orange 68 Camaro. Right now, she's driving a patina 55 Chevy. I see a lot of personal brands developing out here. Lyle Barnett, the cover star of the most recent issue of Drag Illustrated magazine. It's interesting, right? Here's a guy who won 2 NHRA Pro Mod races in 2021, is going to contend the whole season in 2022 behind the wheel of an elite motorsports, modern racing prepared Pro Mod car. On the cover of Drag Illustrated, he's standing on the hood of Beer Money.
Beer Money.
Yep.
Right there. JT is holding it in his hand. That tells me that the story isn't about a Rick Jones Pro Mod Camaro. The story isn't about an 80 whatever Fox body Mustang with a turbo LS in it. The story's about Lyle Barnett. And I see a lot of people leaning in to themselves. They're certainly creating content around cars. I think about guys like Steve Morris. He's fairly married to that station wagon. That's part of his identity. But I don't think that has to be the rule. I think that it needs to be the exception, to be honest. I think that those
cars are the common ground. The cars are the common ground that bring us in to have the conversation. Right. It's drag racing. Everybody loves drag racing. That's the common ground that we share with the guy that's in the car. But then the personality is what is going to make us be a fan of him.
And speaking of Steve Morris,
or her.
This deal is kind of like these drag and drive events, I think, are like his bread and butter. I mean, a lot of these top vehicles have Steve Morris racing engines in them. So he's kind of made a name, and his brand is tightly associated with this type of racing.
Tom Bailey told me this morning that Steve Morris's, what are they calling that thing? The Boost Wagon?
Yeah, I think so.
Boost Master.
Yeah.
This station wagon, Tom told me, he was, hey man, it's basically the same exact car as mine, but it's inside of a tank, a Sherman tank, instead of a super sleek and stretched 68 Camaro, 69 Camaro. So I think that's a cool part about it, because Steve Morris, I mean, he's got to be the odds-on favorite to kind of walk away from this thing as the winner. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely one of the favorites.
Yeah.
There are a couple guys out here. One we just saw with the Corvette.
We see Joe Barry in the staging beams right now. Put it up on the old two-step and gave up the ghost. I think he's going to back up and make another shot at it here. We'll see.
Joe Barry, another guy that's been at this kind of stuff for a long time.
Yes. But he's another example of someone whose brand is kind of married to that 56. Orange, that creamsicle and pearl 56 Chevy, right? I mean, that's part of his identity. And I mean, there's a lot of examples of that. But I think the people who really, how many different cars has John Force driven over the years, right? Even Pat Musey, I think he was one of the guys that were married to the green 69 Camaro or the green 97 Pontiac Firebird or 98, whatever it was. He had a paint scheme that he was associated with. Big Chief comes to mind, the Crow Mod. That's part of his brand, and that makes sense. But sorry, we saw old Joe Barry start to do a little moving and grooving down there about 1,000 foot, and I got concerned. But
it's where you don't want to be moving.
But like Big Chief isn't too married to the Crow Mod. I mean, if you're going to put a big wing on it like he did, it just completely ruin the looks of it. Like, okay.
I think you may have to
T is hard on everybody today.
I probably should start drinking.
I think JT might be tired or something.
He's cranky.
Grumpy. Yeah, just a little.
You're a little
angry.
I want to tell you guys this, and if anybody's traveling to Florida anytime soon, we had a really magical experience last night, and this is going to get somewhat awkward. Guess the thermostat in our hotel room goes to 60.
Oh, man.
It was so cold in there this morning. I woke up shivering. Like,
give us the goods. What hotel is this? We're all going to write this down.
It's the Hilton Garden Inn in Gainesville, Florida, has a thermostat here, even in 2022, amidst COVID, a global pandemic, uncertainty abounds. All these damn hotels won't let you run the thermostat past 70.
And every drag racer out there goes to their room, turns the fan on high, and cranks it down as low as it can go before they go out to dinner or anything, right?
If it would go to 0, I'd run it down to 0.
Do not go to the Hampton Inn on whatever road that is in Sarasota, Florida. They have their shit locked at 70 degrees. And I damn near passed out that night, I think. I mean, it feels like you're suffocating.
It does. And we didn't get, like, you get very shitty rest. Like, you're not getting good sleep. And when I woke up this morning shivering with my fingers and toes blue, I was really happy. Like, that was probably the best night's sleep I've had in a decade.
You even got wind burnt on your face, even.
I got wind burnt.
We all got air conditioner going.
I came back. Speaking of sick week, we all came back with some sick sunburns. Like this,
everybody walking around.
Yeah, everybody the sun caught us off guard on Monday at Bradenton, man. It was
pouring rain yesterday, pretty much all day, cold. And we got to the hotel last night, and I said, man, I feel more sunburnt today than I did Monday when it was scorching or whatever at Bradenton. So I wonder if we got wind burnt yesterday. I'm not totally sure what to make. But
no one was prepared at Bradenton. Everyone that we saw on the highway leaving the track looked just like we do. Just everyone with the raccoon eyes, scorched. Everyone was making their like winter debut with the sun, and it didn't work out too well.
Everybody's skin was a little pale coming out of winter. Made milk look dark.
No, it's that part of this whole thing is like, I can't remember the last time I've stayed in a different hotel every night for a week. I mean, you're throwing your stuff. I was looking through my clothes this morning. I could hardly tell what was clean and what was dirty. It don't matter. Nobody
Turn it
cares.
Inside out like you did Monday. Yeah. I thought maybe you might have just had it inside out because it was dirty or something.
No, but man, I felt like a dumbass. Mike walks up to me. I've been walking around Bradenton Motorsports Park for 5 hours, and Mike walks up to me. He's like, "Your shirt's inside out." It is. And it was funny because
that's for the brand, dude. Sick week. That's the brand, man. That's how everybody's rolling out there.
Yeah.
You chill out, Nate. You're talking too much.
Pull back, man. Pull back.
I know. I'm wound up. Got a lot to say.
Hey, we were talking about, well, maybe this will be up Nate's alley. We were talking about don't wait till you get your nitro license to start establishing yourself out here. We got a little protesting going on the other side of the country in Phoenix this weekend. Have we heard anything, seen anything? I think is it today or tomorrow is like the first official day of it, Nate?
The 10th. So what is that?
That's tomorrow. Okay. So kind of an exciting deal, right? We normally don't get amped up about testing here at Drag Illustrated. We're more of like anti-testing type of people. But
I think testing sucks. I think it should be bad.
But it's cool because we've had so much movement, so many shakeups, a really active silly season in NHRA, especially in the fuel ranks, and we've got new cars, new bodies, new teams, new livery. We're gonna make that a thing in drag racing now. Livery, paint schemes, designs, the whole deal. I'm always excited about seeing that kind of stuff. What about you guys?
I do too. I honestly think we're really another reminder that we're living right now in the good old days. We really are living right now, no matter what your dad or your grandpa wants to tell you about how awesome it used to be. Right now, we are living in the good old days. And you're right, Mike. I'm not big on testing. I personally think it should be banned for the most part, but I understand the need to do it. And I am excited about the Phoenix test session. Drag Illustrated will be out there. I know competitionplus.com has got a live stream going all weekend throughout the event. I'm excited to watch. There's a couple storylines that I think are particularly interesting. Obviously interested in what Tony Stewart racing looks like, right? I'm anxious to see. There are things that they could do different, and I don't know that they will. Will they just do it how Don Schumacher did it? I don't know. Will they just do it how John Force does it? I don't know. I'm anxious to see, are there differences in how they run their program? Are there differences? I mean, think about it. Crew members at a NASCAR race, the pit stop, they're wearing fire suits. You know what I mean? Like they could look different, right? The traditional garb uniform in drag racing is like a crew shirt and black pants. Yeah. I think about they could have everything looking different. The branding could look different. The uniforms could look different. The paint jobs look decidedly different in the NASCAR world than they look in drag racing. Trucks and trailers look decidedly different in the NASCAR world versus how they look in drag racing. And I'm curious if any of that stuff will show up. Maybe none of it, maybe a whole bunch of it. How the crew behaves, how the cars run. There's no doubt that there's going to be a lot of continuity. I mean, you're buying equipment from Don Schumacher Racing. You're buying existing stuff that they've ran before. But it will be fun to see what kind of success they have early on. What if they're able to run the way they used to run, and I'm anxious to see how that unfolds. Obviously, I think the biggest story, the biggest news of last week, and it wasn't a secret, but Alan Johnson moving to Coletta Motorsports and joining forces with Connie Coletta and company. We're all going to be waiting all year long, in my opinion, to see if Doug Coletta wins a championship. We've seen this guy play second fiddle to Tony Schumacher. He's one of those guys. Doug Coletta, I have a ton of respect for him. He's a very, very, very talented driver, but it's kind of like
underrated almost. I mean, if you get like a lot of like Tony Stewart, I think even said that Doug Coletta, or someone said that Doug Coletta is like one of the baddest. Clay Millican. Yeah. Said he's up there with Tony Stewart in open wheel racing and stuff. That's like an unknown thing around drag racing, how much of a wheelman he is.
Coletta is a real deal wheelman, but it's not a secret that, like I said, Charles Barkley is a super badass basketball player, but he came up and was playing ball when Michael Jordan was, right?
Right.
So he ain't winning any rings. And that's, I feel like that's
Bill and Tiger in golf. Yeah. It just happens when there's someone that's so dominant, it happens in sports.
Racing against Tony Schumacher, Steve Torrance, these domineering competitors.
Even the run, the thing that always sticks out to me is that, remember they cut to Doug's face after the run. I mean, that's like that epitomizes the whole thing we're talking about.
It does.
That's the thing. So many of those moments were taken away from Doug by Alan Johnson. And now that he has Alan Johnson in his corner, everything Alan has touched over the last 20 years has been successful. So, I think it's pretty much a lock that he's going to go out there within the first 3 races. And
my guess is Doug Coletta wins Pomona. And I'm going to say it right here, Doug Coletta wins the championship. I'm not trying to jinx him, but I would be
good call.
Genuinely surprised. And this is what I think is going to be a lot of fun, because Brian Loans made this point on the show last week, and Top Fuel is going to look different than it's maybe ever looked in 2022. And I think that winning this year, and again, people get really sensitive and take things the wrong way, but winning in 2022 in Top Fuel will be different. It will, without question, be more significant than winning any of the last few years. I mean, if Doug Coletta's got Alan Johnson, and if Tony Schumacher's back out here, did I say Tony Schumacher? Tony Stewart's fielding a Top Fuel.
Schumacher, I love it. I know, that's great. That's a T-shirt.
Schumacher and Sean Brown has his own team. There's a lot of hitters, and I like Steve Torrance. I don't mean at all to make light of the last 4 championships. Right. Badass. But I think even he would admit that winning a championship this year would be different. It would have, I'm not saying there's an asterisk.
And I'm sure he's welcoming the competition too.
I think he is.
Because that dude, he's out there to see how this whole deal measures up. And for him to go out, like we talked about it 2 weeks ago, for him to go out and perform anywhere close to the level that he has the last few years, is going to be a highly impressive thing. And I think that he'll take a ton of pride in going out there and stepping up to the plate with these guys. And at the end of the day, though, as a counterpoint to what you're saying, when we look back on it, we talked about this also, we look back 10, 20 years from now, can't recall how stiff the fields were, what the competition looked like. It's all about getting that championship. So you still kind of have that at play as also.
Trophies are trophies. Right. I get it. And again, I don't ever want anybody to think that I'm making light of it, but I'm telling you right now, look at what Alan Johnson's presence did for Mike Salinas's team, right? Strappers Racing went from, not taking shots or anything, but they're a top fuel team, no doubt. That's badass, but they're not like in the conversation. You get Brian Houston and Alan Johnson standing behind that thing, and they're like setting records, winning races. All of a sudden, what did he finish? 3rd in the points or something like that? I mean, he was in contention for a world championship last year, and that's the difference those guys make. So to see them arrive at a team that has existed in that 2nd, 3rd place area, he will, without question, be the difference maker. And Doug Coletta, this dude's been one of the most consistently badass drivers the sport of drag racing has known for in 2 decades. How much better is he going to be with the confidence that comes from Alan Johnson making the calls? You're talking about a very sharp knife becoming a razor blade. I mean, this is a guy that's already really good, but now what's going to happen now? So there's a couple of things I think comes specifically from that Alan Johnson moving to Coletta Motorsports deal. One is, I think it could be good for the sport of drag racing or the NHRA as a whole, because if Coletta Motorsports starts to, and I'm not trying to like prophesize the future, but one of the big conversations that, how many times have we heard people say, what happens when Coletta goes away? What happens when John Force goes away? What happens when Don Schumacher goes away? Hey man, you put some rings on Connie Coletta's fingers, right? You put a championship ring or 2 on Connie's fingers. Coletta Motorsports may add a decade to the longevity of that team, right? Like Connie Coletta, let's be honest, he's getting up there in age. He's well over 80, I believe. Yeah. There has to be a belief that this thing's only going to last so much longer. They start stacking up trophies, stacking up championships. There's going to be a long-term contingency plan in place to keep this legacy alive. So that could be some success. Richard Freeman, owner of Elite Motorsports, one time told me, he goes, man, if you can put a Wally in someone's hand, that'll keep them racing for 5 years. Like, if you can let them win one, if you can get them one, they'll race, they'll spend themselves silly for the next 5 years trying to repeat that. So look at what Coletta Motorsports has done for however many years and decades. I mean, they've clearly been there. They're clearly committed. What's it going to look like if they start stacking up championships? What's it going to look like? However, the other side to that coin could be, we're done. Did what we set out to do. Full plug.
Yeah, some of the comments are saying that. Is this Connie's last push, hiring AJ, kind of going all in to get a championship? And we see this in pro sports a lot. You just forego salary cap, draft picks, and you get all the win now mentality.
Win now mode. And that's what I see from Coletta Motorsports. And I'm excited for them, man. I think that's a group of people. I mean, the team's based out of Ypsilanti, Michigan. Like, it's a Detroit motorhead car guys. It's hard not to be a fan of Sean Langdon, J.R. Todd, Doug Coletta, the bounty hunter himself, the Connie Coletta we've been talking about for the last few minutes. It's hard not to cheer for those guys, and I'm genuinely excited to see them have some success. But I got to tell you, Bobby Lagana, Richard Hogan, that whole camp, Dom Lagana, Steve Torrance, they're going to have a whole new point to prove in 2022. So it's going to be fun to watch it unfold. Ron Tobler coming out of retirement. We saw Ron Tobler retire from tuning Ron Cap's Nitro Funny Car, the Napa Know-How Nitro Funny Car, a couple of years ago, stepped away from the sport. We saw him dabble in broadcasting and gets the phone call. However, the deal played out. I read a story, I believe, on Competition Plus about, kind of it being a joking thing, like, hey, maybe you should come back and tune. Then it becomes reality. It'll be cool to see Ron Tobler back out there. But I will tell you another comment that I thought was interesting, because my first thought when I heard Alan Johnson was leaving Scrappers is I'm like, well, what happens there? Well, there was like a crew chief swap Rob Flynn, who personal friend, I've known him for a really long time. I went to the Middle East with him many moons ago. Great human being. There's basically been a crew chief swap. Rob Flynn is joining Scrappers Racing in 2022, and I'm anxious to see him get that opportunity. And I'm also excited to see some of the young guys that are going to get a moment in the sun, because that was a point Mike Salinas has been making lately, that we've talked about it before. Drag racers oftentimes eat their young. Right. I mean, I can't count the number of times my dad yanked a tool out of my hands or pushed me out of the way because I wasn't moving fast enough or I wasn't doing it right. And that's something that exists at pretty much every level of our sport, you know, from the entry level junior dragster racing to Top Fuel. Impatient fathers, impatient racers that don't have the time or the inclination to let someone come up. I'm excited to see there be some opportunity for some fresh faces. Aaron Brooks, not at all a fresh face, but a guy who had a couple of big opportunities or whatever and had some moments. The sponsors went away, the teams went away. He's going to be tuning Doug Foley's car this year. That car,
they're going to run a whole bunch of races. They upgraded a whole bunch of stuff. So they want to be in that mix. And there are a bunch of guys that are like that. Trip Tatum, you know, I know he's coming out there swinging. He's in with that Torrance group, so he got great
Josh
help
Hart
there. Yeah, Josh Hart, Clay Milk, and he's gonna, you know, still be in the mix. It's gonna be
I haven't been excited about. I've never been a nitro guy. I just haven't. It's not what I've known about. It's not what I've been around, and I think we're all guilty of that. Like, I've just never been around nitro racing. You know what I mean? It was kind of always beyond the scope of what I thought was possible for me personally, or what I thought was possible for my family's racing endeavors. This is without question the most excited I've ever been about Top Fuel racing. The last time I was this excited about Top Fuel racing was when we had Tony Schumacher in the U.S. Army car and we had Larry Dixon in the Alanabi car. That was the last time I was this excited about Top Fuel nitro drag racing. And
iconic cover of the magazine also.
Yeah, man. Iconic cover, and it was a great storyline. And however, much different than what we're talking about today. That was two super power teams going head-to-head, like the top cars going head-to-head. Now we've got a whole bunch of independent operations going out here doing battle. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. Let's talk about Pro Stock momentarily, right? I saw Brian Loans post on Facebook, you know, a site for sore eyes. 16 Top Fuel cars pre-entered for Pomona, 16 funny cars pre-entered for Pomona, 19 Pro Stock cars pre-entered for Pomona. I know Freeman and company are headed out west to Bakersfield this week to test there. The new team, Camry Caruso and company, are headed to Phoenix to test. KB Racing rolled through Fort Worth, Texas earlier this week as they headed west to Phoenix for testing. As competitive as Pro Stock was in recent years, I'm wondering, will this season be as good? Can they maintain that? Because it's been really good, really salty. We've talked right here on the show that Pro Stock's stolen the show for the last 3-4 years. Do you think that's something that they can continue, or are they going to have to pass the torch over to their Top Fuel brethren? What's your take, Mike?
I don't think it'll fall off. I think that, like we talked about with the nitro ranks, it'll just come up maybe to that level with all the new blood and the movement we have. We don't have quite as much in Pro Stock, but we do have some, like you said. So it'll be interesting to see how those new programs work out. It's so hard in Pro Stock. Every thousandth of a second matters in Pro Stock, and I think that you're just going to see some more refinement and some more improvement. We're going to see Dallas Glenn continue his ascension.
Let's talk about Dallas.
Some of the stuff that we saw come about last year, we're going to see continuing to move in that direction.
Reigning NHRA Rookie of the Year, Dallas Glenn, which I most assuredly would have burnt the NHRA headquarters in Glendora, California to the ground had he not won. No disrespect to anybody else that was nominated for that award, but I truly believe it was a historic accomplishment for Dallas Glenn to have the season that he had last year.
Yeah, and he got that little bit of opportunity and ran with it, and then ended up,
historic.
He made good on the opportunity.
He made good on an opportunity. Well said, T. It was like, I think they were planning on running 3, 4, 5 races, something like that. And we were celebrating it internally that one of those races was going to be the World Door Slammer Nationals in Orlando. We're like, oh, cool. At least we're going to have this extra car. And I almost felt bad because I'm like, well, he's burning up one of his sponsored outings to come race with us. But I was humbled and honored and glad to have him. But I know that the dream was to go run the tour. He has a bunch of early success, parlays it into a championship contending season where he was tattooing mofos left and right on the starting line. I'm curious, do you guys think that's something that can be maintained? Because I'll say it right here, much like the NFL figures out a quarterback over time, figures out an offense over time, the NBA figures out a player over time. I'm just curious, will the competition, and is that even possible? I don't know. I mean, I'm asking you guys, will people figure Dallas out a little bit? Was that an anomaly? Is it possible to replicate that kind of 00 this, 00 that? Have we ever seen that? I don't know that we've ever seen, and maybe a statistician could help us out. Maybe someone in the comments might know. Has anyone ever cut that many 00 lights in competition in a single season ever in history?
I don't think so. And the thing with Dallas is he's been a bracket racer for years and years.
Yeah.
And even when he was working on a pro stock car, when he had a weekend off, few and far between, he was out at Mooresville Dragway running his bracket car. And that's where you saw that consistency, that quick reaction time. And I think, his first full season, he crushed it. He's only going to improve from there. I think you're going to see more of those perfect reaction times, those 00 reaction times, because now he's had that seat time in that pro stock car. He's more comfortable, and I think the competition, they're really going to have to work on their reaction time game if they want to compete with that.
That's what I think you'll see. I think you'll see more people gunning for that. They know that they've got to, 010, 020 is not good enough anymore. We got to go 00 something. And I think it's interesting. We had Dallas on, I think, very midway through the year, at some point when he had, maybe after he won his first race, and he talked about the different things that he's done and learned through being his own clutch guy, or being the clutch guy for these teams for so long, and the little nuances, the little changes he's made to his setup, to his driving style. We even heard Lyle Barnett talk about that several times. He shims his trans brake button, all these things. It's getting so tough. It always has been in pro stock, but you're going to see the competition, I think, step up around him when it comes to starting line game. We've talked about that with Justin Ashley and some of these other fuel guys as well. They're bringing that to the fuel teams to where you can't just go up there and just go green. You know what I mean? Like, right. Don't red light, just go green. You have got to cut a light, even in the fuel ranks. And it's just competition stiffening up as this new blood comes into these classes.
In the mixed martial arts boxing world, I mean, it's not like it's not exclusive to them, but iron sharpens iron.
Right.
Right. And I do think that we're going to see that perhaps play out a little bit in pro stock this year. One of the things I'm anxious to see how Erica Enders operates in 2022. I've said it right here on this show many, many times. She's been on the cover of Drag Illustrated 2, maybe 3 times. I believe that she is the best natural driver.
She's still the number one driver in that class for me.
I truly believe she is. I think she's the best. But I will be anxious to see, very, very curious. This is kind of her first opportunity to, what's the word? It starts with an R, redemption. Yeah. Like, if I had to pick a single word that would define Erica Enders' 2022 campaign, it would be the redemption tour, because she's been on the winning end of all these historic moments. Right? When she won on a hole shot when she had to. They ran fast when they had to. And most of the time, those storybooks tales, those storybook moments have worked out in her favor. 2021, not the case. Right? They were there. They were in the mix. They were in the fight, and they were they were close to getting it done. But things did not ultimately go her way when she needed them to. I'm looking forward to seeing how she comes back from that. Because I don't think Erica Enders is the type of person, the type of competitor that has ever really lacked for motivation. She's got 4 rings on the fingers. You know what I mean? She's done it. She's kicked a whole bunch of men's ass in a male-dominated sport. She's made history. And I think that she will go down as one of the best to ever do it. But I think there could be a whole new chapter to this story of what she does this year. How does she handle? She's no longer the fresh face. She's no longer the unsung hero. She's no longer on the come up. She's
we always hear now it's Greg Anderson, Erica Enders, and then a whole bunch of young faces. So it's like, I mean, she is still relatively young, but yeah, she's the veteran of the class now, one of the veterans. And I think that experience and that time and time again, she's stepped up. There's a difference between being able to cut 00 lights in qualifying or whenever, it doesn't matter. But for her to be able to pull out or snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, like we've seen so many times, and her crew sort of has that same mentality. I think that they've always got her back. She's got their back. And if the car's off a little bit, she can go get a few numbers on the starting line, and vice versa. If she's having an off day, the crew provides her with a car that could make it up. So it's still, to me, the toughest combination in the class. And of course, you've got Greg Anderson, who had arguably his best year. We nominated him as one of our Racer of the Year candidates for our awards. So again, we've talked a bunch about the fuel classes, but Pro Stock is going to be just as exciting as it has been the last couple of years.
But Pro Stock, especially specifically Greg Anderson, I think about how good of a season that man had. Scoring his 100th win in Dallas. I think 11, 12 number one qualifying efforts. Like, holy hell. How can you, but you got to give a lot of credit to Erica and Aaron Stanfield and Dallas and all these people, because they made Greg work for it. He had the best car all year long. And I'm not firing shots across the bow here, but I think it could be argued that Greg Anderson should have had the championship sewed up in Charlotte.
Well, part of that's the countdown, though. Part of that's the countdown reset. Everyone kind of suffers. Steve Torrance has suffered from that massively to where it comes down to Pomona, but this dude has just been, wiping the floor all season. But that's the countdown. And so it's a combination of the competition that's in that class married with the countdown. It's going to be a tight deal no matter what, no matter how the season plays out.
There's so many. It's fun to think that for a sport that's been around for 70 years, there's still so many cool things going on. There's still so many exciting things happening.
What about, and we need to touch on Pro Stock Motorcycle as far as the changes coming in there too. What
for me personally, Matt Smith and the NHRA owes him a debt of gratitude, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, there's some Andrew Hines, Eddie Craywick, there's Angie, but Matt and Angie are really just like the poster children for Pro Stock motorcycle and motorcycle drag racing in general. And I'm excited to see Matt's empire kind of expand.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm watching.
He's got Scrappers Racing. He's clearly a great teacher. Scotty Polachek, everybody that's been around Matt has benefited from it. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, think back, and that goes beyond motorcycle. And I'm not just blowing smoke up a buddy's rear. Matt even was, when he filled in as a driver in a Pro Mod car, he helped the program. He was an addition to the team. He was a difference maker. So I'm excited to see Matt have the opportunity to have that really rock solid financial backing that comes from being associated with Scrappers Racing and Mike Salinas. That's a team that's, has the financial wherewithal to compete at a high level. And it's been fun to watch Matt Smith be the machine, be the animal that he has been while doing it. I don't want to say necessarily a shoestring budget, but having to mind his P's and Q's financially, and to see him, I'm not saying they're going to go out there and party like drunken sailors and sling the rods out of the thing every run just because they can. But I do think, I've often joked, there's some of these people out here, you got to be really careful about letting them have money. This guy gets access to some money. It's going to be a problem for a whole lot of people. It's going to be a problem. And that's one of the things that I anticipate seeing from Matt and Angie Smith in 2022.
Another point on the Pro Stock motorcycle scene, I think it was announced yesterday, Andrew Hines is going to be stepping away as a rider to focus on kind of the crew chief duties for Angel Sampe and Eddie Craywick. So
I did see that.
I've been
yesterday.
so busy
How that
sick
comes
weeking.
out.
I didn't even know this. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Did you know that, Mike?
Yeah, I saw it yesterday.
You're supposed to say, no, man, I didn't know either.
Well, I came home. I mean, I had to get right back to work, man.
JT, did you know?
No, I was on a plane all day.
I had no idea. That's major news, man. That's really significant
I think
news.
we had heard rumors of that at the end of last year. Did we not? I think that's something that had been talked about with that team, some reorganization going on with it. I think it's smart. I actually think that's going to help them rise up a notch with him focusing solely on tuning. I mean, that could end up being a pretty big deal. And they had a great season last year.
How
Also,
cool is it to see Angelle Sampik talking about the sequel, chapter number 2 or whatever, to see her have had all the success that she has, winning championships, sponsored by the U.S. Army. Like, I don't know that it gets any better than that. To see her have an opportunity to do it again and do it different, another run. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I had no idea that Andrew, and getting him off the bike and behind it, there's no doubt. You're right, Mike. That's going to be a difference maker. There's no doubt in my mind.
And Angel's a difference maker, like you said, too. Obviously, Eddie has had massive success and just consistent as the day is long. But Angelle, everywhere she goes, she seems to bring that championship pedigree, that winning mentality, and she is not going to take second place. You know what I mean? Like, she's coming after it, always on fire. So she brings that to the table.
Seriously competitive.
Yeah. So I think that combination has worked out well, and they'll continue to improve on that next year.
One of the classes that we're not talking about that we probably should be talking about, and we can't exclude NHRA Pro Mod, right? We saw it. It's been a tumultuous couple of years for what I believe to be the final frontier for door slammer drag racing. The NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series has been a collection of the best to ever do it. That's, if you want to leave your mark, if you want to be in that Ricky Smith, Troy Coughlin, Shannon Jenkins, Mike Castellana conversation, you got to go race there and win. And I'm genuinely excited to see what's going to happen. Are we going to see Pro Mod racing revitalized, quarter mile Pro Mod racing revitalized in 22? Or are we going to see some of the same trends? Because we talked about this off the air, and I think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice not to address it right here and now. The unique thing that exists this year that hasn't perhaps in the past, and there's a lot of viable options. Like, there's a lot of competition. The NHRA Pro Mod Series, by and large, has had no comparison. There's nothing that compared to that or presented that opportunity or that platform prior, to the last few years. But you had the PDRA going into what, year 6?
I think it's 7 or 8.
Yeah, 7 or 8, whatever. Clearly having stood the test of time, providing an opportunity to compete at a high level. There's all the Midwest Drag Racing Series. There's news broke earlier this week or sometime last week that there's a slew of the Proline racing team cars that are going to make a run at the Midwest Drag Racing Series Championship this year. I'm just curious, with those other options that exist, and we're kind of completely spacing all the regional series. John Mazzarana's Northeast Outlaw Pro Mods, the Carolina Extreme Pro Mods, Big Dog, the NMCA. There's a lot of places to run a pro mod in front of a crowd and amidst serious competition. You don't have to just go to Gainesville next month.
Yeah, we've talked about that. That's the big thing. Mm-hmm. That's the elephant in the room when it comes to pro mod and with the rule changes and everything. I don't know how to predict this season or what's going to happen, but I do know we do have a couple new cars coming out. Beans asked, anyone know of any new pro mods coming out? The one that I'm excited to see, and I don't know if we've seen it yet, but Ricky Smith back in a Ford. He's back in a Mustang, which I think is a cool deal. A lot of people don't know that he's a Ford guy from way back in the day, and he's got sponsorship.
My condolences.
Parkway Ford, which is
being a Ford guy. That'd be rough.
What's that? Oh yeah,
it's Ford
rough.
guy.
Oh boy,
it is rough, but Ricky can pull it off.
Yeah,
he's actually got sponsorship from Parkway Ford, who sponsored him way back in the day, also. So pretty cool to see that, and maybe something a little bit different.
But can you remember a time, Mike, Nate, JT, that it was February 9th, a month prior to the NHRA Gator Nationals, the legendary East Coast opener, the start of the Pro Mod Drag Racing Series season, that there haven't been 77 renderings on Facebook and Instagram of the new cars.
Right. Yeah.
Right? I find it a touch troubling because almost every season that I've been a part of this, you roll in this time of year, January, February, you're seeing all these new cars coming out. You're seeing sneak peeks of wraps, new sponsors, teams being formed. Something of a deafening silence coming from the NHRA Pro Mod world right now.
You're right.
And I will tell you, and I don't want to name names and get anybody in trouble, but if you take a peek at the schedule of the event schedule for NHRA Pro Mod in 2022, at least what I've seen for Gainesville, I'm a little worried we're back to running at 9 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night. I'm a little bit worried. From what I understand, we're back to 3 qualifying sessions. A couple of years ago, we were all high-fiving each other like frat brothers. You know what I mean? Like finishing a keg stand, because we're going to 4 qualifying sessions. First time ever, NHRA is going to have 4 qualifying sessions. This year, we're back to Saturday Q1 or E1. We're back to first round of eliminations being on Saturday afternoon. We're back to Q3, the final qualifying session being on Saturday morning. I'm not totally sure how to interpret that. Mike, I don't mean to put you in the hot
Before
seat.
that, we got.
No, I was about to say,
Lyle
don't put
down
me in
here.
the hot seat. We
Yeah.
got a guy.
We got a guy in
that
the
is
green
used to
room
being
here.
in the hot
Let's
seat.
bring
We
him
can
in.
talk
Here's
more
Lyle
about this.
Barnett.
What's up?
There we go.
We'll put you on the hot seat.
Why not? Yeah, I came in
Yeah.
at the perfect time.
Yeah,
We
see
said
how
you
it works
know-
that.
I mean, I want to say this and preface this. And Lyle, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I didn't know you were coming. But Mike and I had an off-the-record conversation. But I'm going to air out a little bit of that.
I guess it's about to be on the record.
It's about to be on the record. Calling a spade, you read the tea leaves, it's hard not to feel like the NHRA is less focused or less concerned or less committed to the success long-term of pro modified drag racing, because I can't help but interpret 9 a.m., 10 a.m. qualifying times and E1 on Saturday afternoon in the heat of the day. It's hard not to equate that to going, okay, we don't have as many of them guys as we used to, so screw them. I mean, I don't know. It's hard not to interpret that. I mean, am I wrong, Lyle?
I like to think that it's the Gainesville example. They're going to have the shootout.
Oh, they are going to have the
That's mixed
shootout.
up
I
the
get
schedule.
it. I get it.
I'd like to think that it's going to be an anomaly, but to start the season that way, it's not a great look or feel.
How do you feel, Lyle? I mean, that's a good point. I'm glad you said that.
I mean, it's not going to be all season, right? Like we're not running E1 on
Good.
Saturday afternoon at every race. It's only a handful throughout the year when they're going to do something extra with the fuel teams or whatever. It does suck to start the season like that, but the majority of our race is going to be ran on Sunday. Making it to Sunday is going to mean something a little extra, So,
Do you have a schedule, like an event, whatever you want to call it, an actual event schedule for all of the races? Because usually they only publish those like leading up to the event. Now, I haven't seen any one besides Gainesville, but that's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they are planning on doing it more than once, but I don't know when they plan on doing it. I do know that Gainesville, like Nate said, is to make room for the Bud Shootout deal that they're doing, or whatever that is with the top fuel teams. And that is why we are running on Saturday night for that one. But other than that, I don't know when or why. So I agree with Wes in a sense that it does kind of feel like that we're kind of being shoot off to the side a little bit, but I think there's going to be some give and take here and there. I think at times they're going to make us feel, like we are a part of something. So
do you feel like that because of the rule changes and the whole deal of how that went down, and then how things have gone with the off season?
Yeah, and like there was this huge push for Pro Mod to run all eliminations on Sunday, right? And that's the way it's been for the past couple of years. And then now in a sense, it does feel like we're backtracking some, but they have reasons for why they're doing that, which I'm sure they'll, let us all enlighten us all at some point. But, it's hard, like Wes said, to not feel at least a little bit like we're being kind of shunned, So, I guess we'll see, man. It's
well, why do you think that is? I mean, if that actually is the case, or what's led to that? What's led to this feeling or this sentiment within Pro Mod?
I mean, I think some people could argue that they're just tired of hearing the bitch in the moment,
Exactly.
Like, I mean, some of that's probably, you could argue that, right?
Yeah.
We've got to be.
Pro Mod is always vocal, man. And we've always said that without that drama, though, without that tension, the rules, the constant complaining and back and forth, it wouldn't really be Pro Mod. But then again, when you're NHRA and you've got all these other classes that you don't necessarily have to deal with that, it can be a little bit off-putting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to seem or make it seem like it was self-inflicted, but I could see that somewhat. But what I hope is that, Gainesville is always our most attended race of the year, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we had 26 or 28 cars last year. And, second to that was the U.S. Nationals, I think. And I just hope that feel doesn't directly reflect the number of cars that show up to compete. I'm worried about it. Personally, I'm scared to death we're not going to have a full field. And if we start the year like that, I think it kind of sets the tone for the remainder of the year. And I don't think it's going to go well, and there's going to have to be a huge change somewhere, somehow, whether by us or by the NHRA or by a combination of the two, for us to survive. So I hope that's not the case.
Kyle, is there a magic bullet? Like, is there a single thing that the NHRA or that could happen or that the NHRA could do? We got a wreck out here. The old S10 Blazer into the wall. Looks like he's okay, or like the car's still driving. We'll give you guys an update. Yeah, we got the guy in the other lane is going over to check on him, which is a pretty cool, very typical drag week type of thing to have happen. I have seen it at other events, but we'll give you guys an update in a second. Looks like we're 90 miles an hour. Relatively speaking, a low speed in terms of drag racing, but we're hoping that everything's okay. We see a driver appearing to climb out of the car right now, so I think we'll get an update momentarily. But Lyle, is there we're giving a round of applause, drivers out and safe and okay, but I'm curious, is there a singular thing that you think the NHRA could do that would be a difference maker to kind of get Pro Mod back on track? Because I've had a lot of guys, people that I would be almost afraid to acknowledge because of the ripple effect, that have called me personally, guys that I'm talking about championship winning, #1 qualifying teams, going, it's hard for me personally to get excited about spending a lot of money going Pro Mod racing to race against 8 guys or 11 guys. Do you think there's something that could happen to send it the other direction, Lyle? I
mean, I've said it on here. I've said it on other platforms. You either pay us more to win or you give us more TV time. Yep. That's it. Like, in my opinion, that is the only, well, with the exception of this rumor that keeps floating around that they're going to cut Pro Mod to 8th mile, which if they do that, I'm out. But yeah, either pay us more to win or give us more TV time. Take our 30-minute segment that we get on the second Thursday following a national event, and give us 30 minutes within the Sunday coverage.
Right.
And I think you may not fix it. It may not be the say all fix all, but I guarantee you it would help.
I think it fixes. I think you're on to. I mean, and I hope there are people with influence and authority listening, because when you're talking about, I think you'll appreciate this, Lyle, but I mean, this is a see and be seen deal. This is an ego-driven deal, and if probably the quickest way to turn this thing around without spending a lot of money and making the purses enormous and making the qualifying money crazy is to make these guys and gals in NHRA Pro Mod feel like rock stars. Give them an opportunity to sell sponsorships, because you're going to get some significant TV time. You're going to be guilty by association, right? Because I think there's the NHRA has often promoted the standalone Pro Mod show as like, you guys have your own show. I think it could also be interpreted as we're excluded from the real one.
Yeah.
Right? We're not part of the show that everybody watches.
Well, right. But having our own show immediately following the main TV coverage, or the Monday night after, or even the Thursday night following the national event is one thing, but the second Thursday at 9:55
makes zero sense.
Like
that
dude,
makes zero sense.
None. You know, like I'm not saying just take us off, because I mean it is nice to have something, you know,
but everybody has the results already, and it's hard. You know, it's hard in any sport. Once you know the results of a game or a race or something, it's hard to go back and just sit and watch it.
I agree.
Yeah, no one does that in today's
It
time.
really is.
Mm-mm.
So like
it's forced sports that do well, like literally the sporting events that are broadcast on television, the only ones that move the needle are live coverage. The only ones that matter are live. So to your point, Lyle and JT, like you'd be better off to do a shop tour with Lyle, like go spend a day with Lyle. Like if you're going to do,
you would actually. Yeah.
22.
Which I think they should do that. Somebody needs to pick that up anyway.
Yeah, that needs to happen anyways.
But
like, go spend a day with Stevie Jackson. Go spend a day with Justin Bond. Go spend a day with Lyle. Go spend a day with Sidney Frigo, Jose Gonzalez, whatever. Go, because what they do that I think is a little bit problematic is they do that second Thursday after the race show and treat it like it's happening live, like it's the first time anyone's ever seen it. You know, and it's like, hey man, we all know what happened. We all know who wrecked. We all know who qualified number one. You got to bring something.
And I get a lot of people who happen to catch it when they're just scrolling through on a Thursday night or whatever, and they're like, hey man, we saw the expedited version, but when are they going to show the full? And I'm like, nah man. That you saw it, like that's it. I mean,
NHRA TV, that's the only way.
Brian Loans literally can't talk fast enough to get in enough info just so you know what's going on. You know, like he's literally
he sounds like the dude at the end of a commercial with the
at the airport, you know, telling you all the rules and regulations. You don't catch any of it. Yeah,
that is a problem, man. And I mean, it's to me, and I'm probably going to catch hell for saying this, but when Pro Mod was a growth sector, when it was on an upward trajectory, it looked like an attractive thing to these sanctioning bodies. And then it's since kind of gone the other direction for a multitude of reasons, like we've talked about: payout, cost, travel, economy, diversity of cars, and then rule changes. And like you said, Lyle, Wes, while you were away, we were talking about how pro mod racers are second to none when it comes to bitching, complaining, making sure their combination is not being forgotten or being ruled out of the equation. And I just wonder if all those things together just have them at least kind of in a holding pattern right now. It's like, man, we've got fuels on the come up, pro stocks kicking ass. We got these shootouts. Sportsman racing is doing its thing. We got a lot of irons in the fire. And, you know, this pro mod thing, we're not sure what direction we're going with it right now. And it kind of seems like they're just holding in a holding pattern or something.
But what I think is sad is like pro mod as a whole, when you're talking about the pro mod category across the board, 8th mile, quarter mile, pro mod as a whole is on the come up, right? Like it's the best. It's one of the best things going. Correct. With the exception of what's going on in the Street Outlaws, which is their own deal. Drag racing as a whole, pro mod is it right now, but not in the NHRA. And why that is, there's a disconnect there. That's like somebody's got to freaking fix.
And that's
right?
what I meant within NHRA. Yeah. And when NHRA looked at it back in the early 2000s, they were like, oh, this is something that could help our program over here. And I just wonder if the sentiment has changed within NHRA.
It's easy then to make the argument, well, we'll just make it 8th mile, right? You know, like, and I understand why that rumor is up. Like, I understand that, but I'm out. Like, the reason I race NHRA Pro Mod is because it's quarter
especially
mile,
with a turbo,
250 miles an hour. Like, that's what and if you think about sitting in the stands at ZMAX Dragway for the 4 wides, which are coming up, and 4 Top Fuel dragsters blister down through there, candles lit during the day, go 1,000 feet, and then Pro Mod comes up, and we click it off at the 8th mile. 2 shoots out, 3 out of 4 cars don't make it off the racetrack. Like, no.
That is true. That's a good point about getting off the racetrack. Yep.
Yeah. Like, well, we're not going to, you know, because we're gonna have to run the Leahy boxes, which throw the chutes and cut the fuel off, right? So the chutes are coming out. None of these guys are making it off the racetrack. You can't push these cars with the 4-wheelers and the rollers because the rear quarters on 75% of the cars are too low to the ground to get it underneath there. So then you're forced 3 or 4 guys to either push it or the crew come out on the racetrack with the push vehicle and pull it off. Like total disaster.
Yeah, that's a good
Would
point.
be. I never thought of that.
You know,
Yeah.
so that's not the fix. I mean, would it fix the car count issue? Probably for a little bit, which I know is what we keep arguing.
I think it would fix it for a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Man,
But
for a
dude,
season.
it's not like it's just
But
not
after a
it,
year
you know?
of a poor show, like what you're describing, then
Right.
we've got a whole nother problem on our hands.
Yeah,
So it is just a temporary fix.
You know, it's as bad as watching, you know, EV cars run up and you're like, just no. So I don't. They got to pay us more money and give us more TV time or heavy load one of the two. Right. I mean, that's the only way that we're going to fix it right now, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more, man. It's I'm curious, and we're gonna circle back around and use this as a great way to kind of wrap the show up. Lyle, I gotta say, being down here at Sick Week, and again, I've done a horrible job today for our sponsors. I don't have any of our script read stuff with us. I do just want to say real quick, huge shout out to our friends at Stroud Safety, Elite HP, of course, the guys at Flow Racing and Redline Oil, Sand Haulers of America, for supporting the Wes Buck Show, supporting Drag Illustrated, and helping us spread the gospel of drag racing, connect with people, and keep this conversation going through the week. So thank you all very much. Huge shout out to all the tracks along the way here on Sick Week 2022, from Bradenton Motorsports Park up the road to Orlando Speed World Dragway, here at Gainesville Raceway Park tomorrow, at South Georgia Motorsports Park, and back to Bradenton on Friday. Thank you guys for having us. Huge shout out to Tom Bailey, Luke Newhoff, everybody, Jenny, the whole gang at Sick Week for having us. This event, Lyle, is screaming your name.
I texted him last week. I said, "Why aren't we running this, Lyle?"
I was supposed to be there the whole week, and with Chad and just work here and stuff I got going on, trying to get ready for the NHRA season. I just couldn't be away for a week. But I do have plans to either build a totally separate engine and a different setup and bring beer money next year, or convert the wagons. JT will take something. We're going
to have some cars there next year.
Okay, so let's just. This is something I was thinking about this morning. Like, I'm kind of thinking of Team DI or Drag Illustrated. Let's do it. I'll get a car. I'm thinking I'm going to buy like an old Pro Stock car, like a single frame rail, old Pro Stock roller, and put a big block Chevy in it with a enormous turbo or something. But we will have a car here next year, and I'm challenging you right now. We have to be a part of this. This time of the year, these tracks, this weather, we have to be a part of this.
Well, there's really no excuse. We literally have a year. Yeah.
That's right.
So
we like to procrastinate, Lyle. We'll get started like next January.
It's funny because I tell these guys, give us 90 days, and I'm fairly confident we could build a spaceship. So I do think that next year we need to have a whole slew of cars
at PRI. Wes will be walking around like, "Hey man, would you consider selling that thing? I'm really trying to make Sick Week." I'm like,
"That's true." I mean,
we're just going to buy something turnkey.
Yeah, that's actually too far in advance, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we're going to buy something just ready to
buy
roll.
a car today. I was walking around earlier looking for something that had a for sale sign, and I'm like, man, these people are having way more fun than I am. Like, we need to be a part. I want to be a part of this scene. I'm curious, what's your take on this movement? We've talked about it a lot. It's not new. You know, we're kind of acting like it's new. It's not new. Hot Rod Drag Week's been around for a long time. Rocky Mountain Race Week's been around for a hot minute. These aren't necessarily new things, but it does seem to have a newfound energy. Does this type of racing like pique your curiosity? Like you're a guy who's run Pro Mod, you've run Radio Versus the World, you've competed at a high level. Do you kind of appreciate what we're saying about being able to drive the car, use it more, get your money's worth, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a big drag and drive person, as in like I've got a super fast street car but spending some time around those guys, when Hot Rod Drag Week was on the East Coast, we had a stop at the Customs by Big and HED compound, or we had a party one night, and there were like 60 some cars in the driveway. We had beer kegs and food, and like we had this big time, you know. And then talking to Doug throughout the week, you know, for him, he likes going racetrack to racetrack, but it's more about the camaraderie, more about spending time. You know, you pick somebody to ride with that you enjoy being with, and then you pick a group to follow, and then you hang out at the hotel. And I think that's where Hot Rod Drag Week and Rocky Mountain Race Week have kind of gotten off the beaten path a little bit. It's the drives are longer. It's more strain on the vehicle. People take it super serious. And I think Tom Bailey's approach was make it more fun. Still a drag and drive event where there's 100 or a couple 100 miles between tracks, but there's enough time for you to get to where you're going, open up the trailers, get the beer coolers out, and everybody sit around and hang out instead of driving 400, 500, 600 miles through the night. Everybody's dead beat by the end of the week, so hopefully Sick Week and Tom continue to kind of keep that morale around the race, because I think that is a huge attraction, even to somebody like Eric Yost, who I think him and Stefan are still leading. Are they still leading? Do you know, in the Burgundy Corvette?
That was the Corvette, dude, Wes. I was gonna say, with the Biggins trailer that we passed on as soon as we left Bradenton, we caught up to those guys and did like kind of a roll by video. Had the Biggins sticker on the back, and I was like, I don't know those guys personally, but I bet they're from my neck of the woods.
So that's Stefan got Stefan.
Yeah, it's got like a Swedish flag sticker on it.
Well, he is from Sweden.
Yeah.
He ships the car over here to run these drag and drive events. We've had it for like 3 years because of the COVID deal. Pete Harrell at HED built the engine. Eric Yost at Customs by Biggin has basically rebuilt the car. And Biggin is riding with Stefan this week. So, Biggin, who is a legend in the drag and drive stuff. He's won Hot Rod Drag Week in multiple cars. He has even said, like this one goes back to the early days of Drag Week when it was more fun than it was serious, and that's tends to be the case in all forms of racing today. They start fun, and the next thing you know, somebody takes it super serious, and it either forces you to go that way or forces you out. So I think Tom Bailey's deal, you can come in and be serious, but you can only be serious for so long before you're at the hotel drinking with your friends, and I like that. So I think that, like I said, I was supposed to come do it this year and just didn't make it. But next year I have full intentions of getting something together and going there.
It's a cool deal.
You see that, Lyle? Chase says I'm still a zero.
Yeah, but Chase has a terrible taste in people. So.
Oh man. That's
have you seen
ouch. That was brutal.
It was.
Jeez Louise, man. Well, hey guys, what else do we have to cover? Are we good?
I think that's it, man. I mean,
you
probably better get back to it. It's about time to get on the road to the next stop,
I was just thinking, I was literally looking around and I go, man, Biggins in the staging lanes right now. They're actually at the top of staging lanes in lane 6 right now, which is the big tire lane. So I see someone climbing in that thing right now. So I think while they get this car, this little S10 Blazer that bumped into the wall down here just past the finish line, I'd say your boys are about to make another lick. I see Joe Barry in the lanes. I see Cletus McFarland in the lanes. A handful of the Sick Week heavy hitters getting ready to make another run. But I got to tell you, man, if we're going to get to where do we got to go? Valdosta, Georgia?
Yeah, we've got to head north.
How many miles is it?
It's going to be, I think, about 160.
So, are you guys going to Applebee's for the 2-for-1 drinks?
I'd rather walk into traffic than go to Applebee's.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a bad one, but the drinks were
it's a bad one.
The food was awful, but the drinks were good.
Yeah.
Hey, last thing we need to touch on, a week from today, Drag Illustrated Awards live from Fort Worth. I'll be in studio with Wes. We'll be hosting it. Murder T on the 1s and 2s, announcing the big awards, man. Who won? Who lost? Who agrees with us? Who disagrees with what we
tuxedo T-shirt yesterday?
Yeah, I gotta get you.
Okay, great. We should maybe that might be easier, Mike. We could just, instead of wearing suits and ties, we could just wear tuxedo T-shirts.
I'm good with that because I'm gonna have to pack this stuff in my suitcase all the way to Mexico. It's got to make the ride.
If you order one now, it will be in Fort Worth in plenty of time.
Let's go ahead and jump on Amazon.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't promise that, Lyle.
What?
How quick stuff gets here with shipped right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's true.
Oh, hey, and I want to talk. Well, we're not going to do the show next week because we're going to do the award show.
Yep.
But
what time? Again, 6:30 Central.
p.m. Central Standard Time, live from Fort Worth, Texas. The Drag Illustrated Awards, very exciting. Everything from Racer of the Year, Sportsman Racer of the Year, Outlaw Racer of the Year, Tuner of the Year, influencer of the year, pass of the year, moment of the year, rivalry of the year. All these conversations, all these questions will be answered next Wednesday night, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do want to touch a little bit next week or in the coming weeks. One of the things that nobody is talking about that's been a big talk here this week is what happens in 2022 when some of these parts shortages, some of these supply chain issues start to rear their ugly head later this summer. So we need to make sure we make note of that because that's going to be a big conversation here in 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for being a part of this. I say it each and every week, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart. It's a ton of fun to talk to these guys. It's a ton of fun to talk to Lyle Barnett, but the difference maker is all of you. All the comments, all the shares, all the engagement and conversation. You guys make all the difference in the world. So thank you for being a part of this from the bottom of my heart. Truly, it makes all the difference. Click like, click share, subscribe to the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel. Help us make drag racing greater than it already is. Guys, thanks a bunch for joining us. Lyle, thanks for your time, man. I know you got all sorts of stuff.
Dude.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank y'all. Yep.
Y'all.